Hey everybody, Shawn here with the Automation Blog and School, and in this episode of the Automation Podcast, I'm trying something new. I've invited several different controls engineers, automation engineers on the show over the coming weeks to talk about what they're doing at work and how they got started in this industry and so on. So this is the first episode, but we have a couple more coming after this one, and I'd really like to get your thoughts on what you think. Is this something I should continue on in the future? Or you prefer if I just have vendors on to talk about products? Let me know. You can leave a comment under this show, or you can contact me directly by clicking on the contact link over at theautomationblog.com. Now, for this first episode, I chose our freelance writer who's contributed dozens, if not hundreds of articles over at theautomationblog.com, Brandon Cooper. I'm excited for you to get to know him because I've gotten to know him through his writings over the last few years, and he's just done a terrific job. So with that said, let's meet Brandon Cooper. Brandon, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. Now, for those who don't visit the Automation Blog, Brandon is our number one freelance writer. He's written dozens, if not hundreds of articles for us over at the Automation Blog. A lot of great stuff on everything from control logics, compact logics, Micro 800, S7 PLCs from Siemens. You pretty much have covered it all. And you've done some HMI articles. And I thought now that we're starting to interview people, as well as we'll continue to have vendors on to show us new products, but I thought it would be great to start the interviews out with at least from a controls engineer or an automation guy perspective to start out with you, because our audience knows you so well over on the blog. So with that said, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell people a little bit about yourself and your full name, your position, and just the kind of the basic stuff so they get to know who you are, besides a freelance writer at the blog.
Well, thank you for having me, Shawn. It's good to be here. My name is Brandon Cooper. I'm a senior controls engineer for Graphic Packaging International at a pulp and paper facility in West Monroe, Louisiana. My primary position there is recovery boiler control specialist for recovery boiler and evaporator area, as well as I handle a lot of the PLC administration mill-wide. So that's kind of my day-to-day profession.
Yeah, and I think you've covered so many things from network, So it seems like your responsibility for not only deploying logic systems, but you also have, don't you have a DCS you also maintain? Is it a Honeywell?
Honeywell, Experion, and we have Experion NTDC 3000, which we're moving away from, but there's still a lot of it out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've heard
there's a lot of TDC still out there. So I've got plenty of years of experience with that as well.
Yeah, the TDC 3000 has been around forever. So I think it might be older than the PLC 5. I used Allen Bradley most of my career before I went out and started doing the automation school and blog. And, some of the old products like the PLC 2, I won't touch with a 10-foot pole. I do have a Slick 100 up here on the top shelf, but and I kind of like those. This is my first PLC I learned on, but I won't touch the PLC 2, and I know the TDC 3000 is that kind of vintage old. I believe it is. I believe it's that old.
I believe it was around the same time, 1985-ish, somewhere in there. So yeah, they come out pretty close to the same time, and it's rock solid still.
Yep. I have a lot of respect for Honeywell during the pandemic. They moved mountains to open a PPE plant next to us. And I say next to where I used to live, about 2 hours from here, and just a really heroic company, just doing their best to help the country. So I have a special place for them. Not that I've ever used their products, but I'd love to get them to come on the podcast sometime. But just hearing about how they really were like Ford, when they were making the ventilators and all that, they were one of those American companies that really stood up and wanted to help. And they make great products. They make so many products.
They do. They have a lot of great products.
Yeah. So you also do a lot of with the OT. I know we've talked a bit about networking and switches, and you've sent in on some of your blogs. You've had some really nice pictures of how not to do a networking closet and how to do it, and servers. Is that a major part of your function besides doing projects and putting in new PLCs?
Yes, day to day, we have an OT network that's pretty good size. I would say we have around 100 network switches in our OT network um, that we maintain. I work in a control group with about 6 other guys,
Yep.
and we maintain our entire operational network, which is a lot of Cisco switches, Stratic switches, for the most part. It's
So
all managed and you know, trying to keep all the security where it needs to be, keep all the
yeah.
firmware up, and that can be a full-time job in itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's security is so important. I know we were talking to the ISA to get them to come on to talk about their security standard. Um, One of the things I wanted people to kind of get a feel for was kind of like your background, how you got into this role, because I don't think anybody graduates with a degree in PLCs or DCSs, right? So, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background, how you kind of got into this role as being a senior controls engineer?
Sure. My dad was an electrician, instrumentation and electrician in a paper mill for 36 years, I believe. He kind of guided me toward the instrumentation role when we had a great school here in Minden, Louisiana, and I attended there 99 to '01. And as I was working in my instrumentation degree, I got on at a little plant called Willamette Industries, particle board and composite panels, and got my start there as what was going to be a shift electrician job. And this guy snagged me up one day and asked me, was I interested in building graphics for him? And that's all I've ever done ever since for the last 22 years. I got started with an ABB system doing graphics as well as Cytec, which Cytec SCADA was just coming into the U.S. back then, and we got a big project with it. And little did I know, as I was graduating school, they approved like $100 million upgrade for that facility. And so over the next 2 years, I got to um, do all the Cytec graphics for the entire facility. I think we had over 100,000 tags in that system when we started it up. It was a particle board line with a continuous press, and we did all control logics throughout the mill, probably 25, 30 processors
Wow.
connected to this system. And it was just a really great start. We had all Rockwell MCCs with 1336 drives on DeviceNet, E3s on
Ooh.
DeviceNet, all ControlNet remote IO. So for a kid coming out of school, it was about the best learning experience I could have had. So 20 years
Do you
later, that's all I've ever done.
do you remember what controllers were they? The 5550s or the 5555,
It
5560s,
was,
L6s?
yes, we started with the 5550s.
Oh
It
wow.
was around version 7 at the time when
Oh,
we
that's
started
old.
that facility, 10 megabit Ethernet cards.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't long before 55s, everything started coming out. And within the next few years, L6s and such. And I think by the time I left that facility in 2011, we were up around version 17 or 18, something like that. And
Yeah.
moved on and went to a facility that had TDC 3000, and my job became a mixture of Rockwell and Honeywell. And so was at that facility for about 6 years, and now we're at graphic packaging. The last 5 years, I've I've done more Rockwell and Honeywell.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the old L1s. The biggest problem I had with the 55s were you could buy them without any memory. So
Mhm.
people would buy the cheapest one. They had no memory in it, so it was not usable. And they would get many an angry phone call. And I think when it first came out, there was no non-volatile either, which, as soon as the battery dies, you had unhappy people as well. Eventually, they
Right.
added non-volatile. But still great stuff. I was working, I think it was Osram, Sylvania, purchased my first Control Logic product from us. It was just a gateway. There was no controller. And that was back with Factory Talk View, actually, RS View Machine Edition. I think it was version 1.5.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it was running on a 6182, if I remember correctly. But yeah, good times, good products, and ControlNet, really got a bad rap. A device that had its issues, but ControlNet worked if you knew how to do it. It worked really.
Right. It's all about the setup and making good physical connections, but it worked, and there's still a lot of that out there as well.
Yeah, yeah. I even teach it in my course because it really is. Once you know how to, with Control Logics, with the PLC 5, really even with the PLC 5 was the Slick 500. I would never even touch with a 10-foot pole with the control net. It wasn't fun. Hey, I wanted to ask you, like what are the new products you're using today? So this is some of the old stuff you used when you got started, right? So I know you recently did some new stuff. I think you've used the L8s. I think you've done some new redundancy. Tell us about some of the new projects you did over the last year or so. We don't want any proprietary information about your company, but if you could kind of share like some of the things you're doing and some of the new products you've used. Have you liked them? Did you not like them? Where they move up? What can you tell us?
Sure. Well, one of the big things that I do, and probably a lot of people are doing, is upgrades. So you've still got a lot of 1771 and PLC5 controllers and IO out there, and we're always upgrading that and trying to get to something that's currently sellable, or currently able to buy. So
Yeah.
done a lot of those upgrades. Of course, yeah, we're using L7s and L8s processors. I don't haven't used the Plant PAX, so a lot of the stuff with the L8 features and the P controllers and things that really haven't had any interaction with, but L7s are common. Have used the L7s with the latest redundancy, so um,
How did
that's
that
been
go?
that's been good experience with their last several revisions from 30 on up. I've found redundancy to be very solid.
Oh, good, good.
IO wise, control net, yeah, we are, we do move away from that and go into Ethernet, and whether it be DLR or PRP, those protocols are both working very well.
I think you're using some time synchronization too, aren't you? I'm just thinking back to some of your articles.
Right, just some GPS antenna type situations where you can run an external antenna into a time sync card and sync your controllers that way. I think
I
Rockwell
don't.
has a card and ProSoft has a card. I think they'll both work in a control logic track.
Yeah, I think Rockwell bought Hyprom a number of years ago, which used to be the big one for the synchronization. Were you using that? Just curious if you're using SEO, sequence of events, SOE, not SEO, SOE. Getting my terms mixed up. Any sequence
Haven't
of
really
events
used that.
modules? No.
Haven't
I know
really
that
used those.
on some boiler systems they like that. They need that really fast timestamp um, on those cards, but they're also an added expense to get them too. Um, how about visualization? What are you doing for? So I got a good feel of what you have for the Honeywell and the Rockwell out there in the plant. What do you do for visualization? Yes, it doesn't sound like you're using SideTech anymore. Are you using Factory Talk View or it's one of the other products, Ignition or?
Honeywell Experion.
Oh, all right. Do you bring the Allen Bradley into that as well? The Allen Bradley tags?
Yes. And there's different ways to do it. But Experion, is a solid platform, both controllers and visualization. So, yeah, I've used it at a couple of different facilities, and over the last decade, I've seen it come from version 201 up to 520 now, I believe is the latest that's out. And it's a good product and a lot of good capabilities with it. Of
Nice.
course, there's always a lot of using a lot of panel views
Oh,
with
all right.
Factory Talk ME and things like that as well. They're scattered around and have plenty of experience with those.
Yeah, PanelViews. I actually teach a course on them. They're, just being one of the old timers. I started with the RS View when it first came out. I actually used the stuff before that, but really, Factory Talk View Studio is still like you're leveraging all your old RSView 32. So
Right,
if you were using it back in the mid 90s, almost everything in the product's still the same, which is comforting. It's all modern now and there's all these new features, but I just find it so fast, so easy and fast to build up a PanelView Plus system because it's or a VUSC system because they're just like they have that lineage back to RSView or RSView 32, and
right.
so going all the way back to the mid 90s, which is cool. And that's one of the things that I know you did some articles on using the PanelView 5000, and we've actually had I think it was Keith Hobbs came on, the product manager, and did a whole podcast with us on that. And they look great. It's just I think for me, and you tell me if you run into the same thing. Like one of the reasons why I think you may have only have used a Micro 800 when you did the articles. I don't know if you deployed one. Oh no, maybe you did. But anyways, I stayed away from the Micro 800 for so long because it wasn't like RS Logix. RS Logix 505 and RS Logix 5000, very similar. The tags are different, but
Right.
programming ladder is almost identical when you go from those old packages to the new ones. And the Micro 800 is more of that IEC look and feel, which now I'm very familiar with teaching Siemens. But for the longest time, I wanted to touch that. I'm kind of there with the PanelView 5000. Is I know it has a lot of great features, but I've been reluctant because I'm so good with the other stuff. Have you found that? Have you been staying with the PanelView Plus and not going to the PanelView 5000 because you already have a bunch of one and you're familiar with it, or?
I would say in practicality, yes. Staying with the PanelView Plus, only because that's really what's out there and what's been available. I wouldn't be opposed to using the PanelView 5000. From what little I went through it and did the articles on it and learned about it, it was very easy to pick up, and I liked that the software was configurable with Studio, so it was. I wouldn't hesitate to try one.
Yeah, it's tough when you do have a plant full of the other stuff, though, to put an oddball in. But
Yeah, when it comes to spare parts and things, you got to be mindful of that.
oh
It's
yeah,
you don't just grab every new product. You kind of standardize on things so you're not wasting a lot of spare part inventory.
yeah. For the same reason, you don't want to have every PLC manufacturer in your plant. You don't want to have
Right.
every product from a single vendor because you just can't stock it all. It's not efficient, and training people on it's not efficient either. But yeah, if anybody wants to, Brandon did a great job on that series of articles on the 5000. Highly recommend. I think it's the 55. Is it the 5530 and the 5550? I've lost track of the model numbers now, but there's the 5500 and the 5300, I think. So that's the two different lines of PanelView 5000s. But I did confirm with the factory we can still call it the PanelView 5000 line, even though it's the 5500 and the 5300. After work's done, right, and you put up the hard hat and put down the keyboard. What do you like to do for fun? Because we all have to have a life. We all have to have fun outside of work. So tell me some of the things you like to do. What's some of your pastimes?
Ooh, man, I've never run out of things to do, Shawn. I never run out of things to do. I like to fish, of course, spend time with my family and kids, and love to travel, weekend trips, and love New Orleans and just home state of Louisiana. We plenty to do here. I paint on canvas. I love to read, love to write. Of course, I love writing for the blog, researching, writing songs, poetry, you name it. I never run out of things to do.
So are you do you have any big plans for this year? You got anything going on and any new products you're gonna be trying or new systems you're gonna be putting in, or is your company really in the maintain mode? You're gonna upgrade more of those 1771s and PLC 5s?
All of the above.
Okay.
A little bit of a mixture. Believe it or not, we're actually, I say we, there's still plenty of pneumatic and electronic controllers out there that we're still bringing into control systems. That just because this is 2022 doesn't mean that every loop out there is even hooked to a control system. There's plenty on Foxboroughs and old pneumatic controllers.
Yep.
As well as 70s and 71 upgrades. Just keeping up with software and firmware on 75 controllers is a full-time job, trying to keep all that up. Honeywell Experion upgrades. It's just a full-time revolving door of keeping all those systems up to date. So there's always something to do there.
Well, Brandon, I really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day, evening, to come on the show and say hi to everybody, kind of give them some insights of what you're doing out there and what you're seeing, and also want to thank you for all the articles you've written. Because if you go up to the automation blog, you can click on his name, you'll see everything he's written, and it's been great because he's been able to get the products I just don't have the time to get to. So it's really been a pleasure having you write for us and also having you on the podcast, and really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Well, I want to thank Brandon for coming on the show and taking time out of his evenings to come on the show and introduce himself to our audience. If you want to see all of Brandon's excellent articles, you can check them out at theautomationblog.com. And again, please let me know. Do you want to see me do more of these? Or, hey, would you like to come on the show? Are you a controls engineer, automation engineer, electrical engineer who does cool stuff in automation? You want to come on the show and talk to the audience? Let me know. Just hit that contact link over at theautomationblog.com and get in contact. With that said, you can always find great deals on my courses over at theautomationschool.com, and you'll see there's a new pop-up where you can save an additional 10%. With that, I want to wish you all a very happy, safe, and healthy week. And until next time, my friends, peace.